Hey there, CPO here. I just wanted to share a couple things real quick as I begin to button up the wiring of my helicopter. First of all, now that I have the wires plugged into the fly barless system, and I know that that's where they're going to be, and I don't plan on removing them anymore before I button this thing up, I did apply some goop. This happens to be RV goop. Goop is goop from what I understand. Shoe goo, home goop, whatever goop, goop. It's all pretty much the same stuff. And basically, the recommendation that I've seen a lot of people suggest, I've seen this on Finless Bob's stuff, I believe, and heard some other people talking about it, is to use this goop silicone adhesive just to kind of lock in these wires. I don't know if you can, I think you can see that glimmering in the light there. So basically what I did is just ran essentially a bead of this, and it kind of self-leveled right there across the top. That's going to be in contact with every single one of those servo wires, my ESC wire. Also I have here my my governor wire, but that's and my my receiver wires. So that's going to ensure that these wires don't work out over time. Let's assume that I don't crash my helicopter right away. What I don't want is vibrations and such to work these wires out. I'm less concerned about things like this, little connections here and there for the different satellite receivers. Number one, I have two of them, so I have some redundancy. If one comes undone, I've still got another one, but if you lose one of these wires, any one of the cyclic servos or the tail servo or what have you, it's destined for failure. So I'm taking the recommendation that I've heard and read to just goop those things in. The good thing about this goop stuff, of course this is my first time to use it, so time will tell if this was a smart idea or not. But my understanding is the way this stuff works is when it dries fairly solid, but yet rubbery. So in order to remove that, all I have to do is like get a corner of it and just peel it all off, and the whole thing will come off as one unit. So that's what I'm going to use to lock those things down with. And then I'll show you later on when this dries, you know, how I get it all into the helicopter. The other thing I want to do while I have your attention is figure out my motor direction. And I want to do that while I have everything apart so that I can understand my color coding on the ESC. Remember in the last video I didn't finish putting on my color coded shrink tubing because I wanted to make sure I had the right configuration here. So the way the motor works, the wires work, is there's three wires, and if you swap the any two of them, then you'll reverse the direction of the motor. So I want to figure out, is this the right direction of the motor so that I can lock them in where they're at and get rid of this electrical tape and then permanently wire everything together. So what I'm going to do here, I actually took out the main gear. I'll show you that here in a second. And while I had it out, I thought this was a good idea to check out this motor direction. So let me back this out. And I'll show you also a little bit about what I have going on here. I haven't really talked about this RPM sensor, but I'll talk about that as well. This is for the fly barless system. It is the Hobbywing RPM sensor. I've showed this before. Basically, I have this wired into two of these motor connectors. And I mentioned this before, I know a lot of people like to wire them in here at the ESC. I decided to wire them in here at the bullet connectors. And basically I just soldered them, I'll bring it back down here. I just soldered them just to the side here of these bullet connectors, and my shrink tubing, when this comes undone, my shrink tubing will just slip over this whole unit as one, and then that will be wired in. So for the RPM sensor, I just needed to have it on two of the motor wires. Those are the two I picked. And as you can see, I added some shrink tubing to kind of help it run up here so it's not all bunched up close to the motor connections. And then I'll just have that wired in and bundled up with the ESC. So at any rate, so what I want to do now is see if I have the motor in the right configuration. So I'm going to turn this on its side so that we can all see it. I'll prop it up a little bit here. Trying to keep from making a mess of my goop while it dries too. So here's my empty pinion and the motor. We're going to see the motor turn. What I want to see, the rotors need to turn in a clockwise direction as seen from the top, which means my main gear is going to turn in a clockwise direction as seen from the top. But that means the motor needs to turn in a counterclockwise direction because it's going to be driving the main gear. So if the motor turns counterclockwise, then that's going to turn the main gear clockwise. So at any rate, that may be hard to explain if you can't visualize it, but I'm looking for the exact opposite on the motor. I want it to spin in this direction, in the counterclockwise direction, and then I'll know it's correct. So here's an interesting thing I found. I'll share this with you. If I plug in the battery with no transmitter powered on, obviously I get some awesome connectivity on the helicopter, and you can see my Robird initializing. What I don't get is the startup sequence from the ESC, which tells me that there is a safety setting somehow in here. I'm not sure if it's the Robird that's doing it or the ESC. Probably somebody else is more familiar with this, knows the answer right away. But at any rate, it's just important to note that until I turn on the receiver, or until I turn on the transmitter and get a connection with my receivers, I don't actually get an initialization startup. So I'm assuming that's a safety feature. I think it's pretty cool. It still does not prevent the best practice of making sure your receiver's on before you turn on the helicopter power. But at any rate, I thought that was interesting. So now that I have this powered up, I don't have anything connected to this this motor. So no main gear, no tail is gonna run. So what I can do is just kind of spin it up with the throttle. Now my servos do move, of course, but you can see I am actually running in a counterclockwise direction with the motor, which is what I want to see. So I know now that I can go ahead and leave these bullet connectors in the orientation they are, and then shrink wrap them, color code them, so if I ever have to plug it apart, take it apart again, I can always replug it in the right formation. So, and my motor works. So hey, yay, things are starting to come together nicely. Wanted to share that with you just because I thought it might be helpful for somebody. So I'm going to disconnect power, set this back out of the way, and I want to talk a little bit about the main gear. So one of the problems I had with this default Taro main gear is there was quite a bit of wobble. I showed this in another video and I didn't like it. So I've seen some tricks where you can boil these, soften it up, and then perhaps put some weight on there to flatten them out. I've also heard that perhaps this bearing holder, the main bearing, or it's a one-way bearing, is actually not straight, or what have you. I did try loosening it up and tightening it and checking it, and I don't know, it's still got quite a bit of wobble on it. So when I ordered my swash plate leveler, what I realized is I ordered from A-Main Hobbies, and if I hit a $25 threshold, then shipping was free. So I'm like, well, you know, this is probably a good opportunity to get a couple things. The swash plate leveler was pretty cheap, $7 or $8. But they did have the Align 450 main gear assembly for $17.99, I believe it was, something like that. So I decided to go ahead and order it. Number one, it's got me free shipping, and I was debating whether or not I was going to swap it out anyway. So I am going to change this main gear and auto rotation gear assembly from the Taro one to the Align one. And I can't say positively the Taro one just isn't good. This is warped though, and it does wobble, so I have some concerns there. I could probably fix it. But I did notice right away that the auto rotation gear seems quite a bit different and a little bit more substantial on the Align version. And just let me show you this real quick. Make sure we're in focus here. So this is the Taro version. This is the Align version. So what you can see is it actually has more of a fan sort of a style, which I'm assuming helps keep some head speed as opposed to the flat style. So that may be fairly significant. I don't really know. It may or may not be. The other problem I have though is that it does not come with, you know, when I ordered the replacement assembly, what I got was the one-way bearing in the main gear and the auto rotation gear, and I believe I got another one of these little washers here, bushings. These are bushings. What it did not come with though is this little shaft for the one-way bearing. So I'm going to have to press that out of the Taro version and then install it into the Align version. And the way I'm going to do that, obviously, it's basically going to go in place of one to the other. You have to press this out though. They do make a tool to press them out. The trick here though is to get a tiny socket that will fit inside and a little bit bigger socket that will fit on the outside, and then clamp them and then just press it out. So I'll probably set that up. I may even show that on video. But at any rate, that's why I have this whole thing apart, and I took the main gear off. And I figured while I'm at it, it's a good opportunity to test that motor. I could do it after I get everything buttoned up, but then I have to worry about you know, what I was going to do with getting that shrink tubing put together the way I want it. So it's easier to do it now because as soon as this goop dries, this whole thing is going together. That's it. I am done with the wiring, and I'm ready to get this thing mechanically set up. So I want to get this stuff done. So I just decided while I've got it out, take care of all this stuff, and then I'll change out this main gear while I'm at it. So at any rate, little sidebar. Hope it's helpful for you. I know I covered a bunch of random things in this video, but that's kind of the way the build's getting. I've literally tossed the manual aside for a while now. I haven't even looked at the manual because I'm into stuff that's just a little bit more non-specific, non-structured, and it's just a little bit of personal things, some preferences, some setups, some, you know, some aftermarket stuff, and now it's just kind of more. It's more art than science. You know, the first part of the build was all science. Do this, exact this, measure that, you know, lube this, torque this. This is a little bit more artistic stuff here. You know, getting the wiring the way I want it, deciding what I want to do with the main gear, you know, putting the right color shrink tubing on the motor wires. All that stuff is just a little bit of personal touch that I'm planning on doing to the build. So anyway, some of this stuff is just going to be really random. But here pretty soon I'll be back into the Robird software, really getting this thing set up and ready for the maiden flight. Alright, so I did get my one-way bearing shaft out of the Taro anti-rotation gear. Mangled it up just a little bit, which is fine because I wasn't planning on using it, and my nut is still stuck in there. I've got to get it out of there. And then here is the actual shaft. And as you can see, it's got a collar on it, and then it just fits inside there, and your screw through the shaft is what holds all that in place. This is the hard part about buying parts on the internet, is I often assume that things come as complete assemblies. For example, when I ordered the main gear auto rotation gear assembly, and I see it pictured like this on the internet, I'm assuming that the shaft is in there, but it's not. I have to provide that myself. So luckily I had one that wasn't in bad shape from the original, because I haven't done anything with it yet. But if you do end up ordering the anti-rotation gear and main gear assembly, it probably wouldn't hurt to just go ahead and order this piece as well. So I didn't know I was going to need it. I assumed it came with it. So there's something for you that'll hopefully help you out. How I got this out, was a little bit awkward. I used a C-clamp and basically found a small little socket that would fit in the top. Now unfortunately I needed a little bit smaller one, which is why I mangled this up a little bit. I needed a little bit smaller one to really fit in the diameter of this plastic, but this is the smallest one I had around that I could find, so I just went with it knowing that it was probably going to mangle the top of the plastic. And then I used a larger socket on the other side just to press against, so that this shaft here would have something to go into without actually hitting the C-clamp. So this was like, this, and basically I put that on this side to push it through, put it on this side to kind of capture it and stabilize it, and then I put the C-clamp around it and put enough pressure on it that it pushed that shaft through just enough to where I was able to get it and then work it and pull it out. So they do make a tool. It's basically the same thing except the right sizes. They do make a tool to do this. The right way to do it is to measure with a caliper this diameter, this outer diameter, and then find a socket or something else round that is the exact same. I didn't have anything exactly the same. I had something close, and it worked for me. So with that said, now I need to put this into the auto rotation gear from Align. And by the way, one other thing I noticed, besides the fan design of the Align, it also has this metal sleeve inside of it. So good or bad, I don't know, but that is another distinct difference between the Align version and the Taro version. And I've said this before, I'm a big fan of the Taro. A lot of the Taro parts even I tend to prefer over the Align, but this is one case where I think the Align main gear is better, just from what I can tell. So basically what I want to do is put this in with the short end towards the bottom, and then I want to do my best to align the hole. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it goes in really easy. So even this one, I probably, I wouldn't even have to press out. I just put it in. The Taro one was in there pretty solid, which is why I had to press it out. Unfortunately, I couldn't just knock it out. I tried grabbing with pliers and a little bit of napkin, paper towel, so I didn't mar this up, but I was really concerned about marring up this surface. So you don't want to do that, because that's what's going to be in contact with your bearing. So my hope is that now with this new main gear and auto rotation gear, that I will get rid of all that wobble that I had before. I will put some oil on this where the one-way gears are going to contact it, and then of course once I put the screw through the main shaft, then it will only rotate in one direction. So that's that, and hope it was helpful for you. Anyway, I'll catch you on the next one.